Okay, tubers, so today we have, I'm going to do a video on components in this shed. So it'll be two parts. There'll be one standing here pointing, and then another one where I'll go and do screen capture and run you through all the software on this computer. So here we've got a PIP 2424 MSX. It is a 24 volt unit and it has a built-in 60 amp MPPT charge controller. However, I'm not using that. I'm using the PCM60X. Basically, we've got down here, we've got power coming into the shed and out of the shed through the same cable. This fuse breaker here controls the outgoing power. Now it's a 32 amp circuit breaker, and we've also got a 16 amp safety switch here, which is on this power point alone, which runs all my computer stuff behind. So this is a mouse. This controls the computer, and when I move it, the screen comes back on, which is what I wanted. So basically here we've just got, this is the software that controls that, and this software here connects up to the now working Victron Energy monitor. So if I pull this out, and this will look really professional, but you know, it's what I do. If you look behind, there's a big mess of wires and, you know, cable management. You can't see it when it's hiding behind a computer. So we got into the computer. It is literally a 10-year-old computer. 32-bit, it won't even take a 64-bit operating system, but it's cheap and it works, and that's all I needed. And it doesn't use much power. Win. Network cable coming in, and the network cable is configured so I can remote access through my phone, through my computer or whatever else, and also so other people can actually remote in and do stuff to this computer, because a lot of people use it for development. Cable here goes through to the other shed and runs the PCM60X software on this computer. We've got a little dongle behind it, little white dongle in behind there, that goes to through that hole there, the what's that, SMA TL5000 grid tie inverter. So that connects up with that, and that software is also on that computer. We have got just a little hub, keyboard and mouse. That dongle there is called, I'll link later because I can't remember, but it's a funny, a VE Direct, there we go. It's a $60 cable to connect this device, which is $220, to my computer, but allows me to see all that information there and lets me see I've pulled 204 amp hours out of the battery bank, and I've still got 71% left in the batteries. Have I said that makes me happy? Anyways, so there's not much to actually show you in here. It's all pretty simple. Just a normal little swing mount on the screen to keep it all easy and nice and clean, because let's face it, that looks quite good when it's put back there. You don't notice everything behind there. So this is the shed, the power shed. Now let me take you back to the workshop, run you through a bit of software, and then again, like the last video, link below, I'll put all the details and stuff of each component, where I got it from and where I got the software from and the cables and all that sort of stuff. Okay, tubers, this is the software side of it. So this is all running off that little PC that I've got down there. So basically, I hope you can see my mouse here, but we've got on this one here, which is called the Bmv Reader, which is for that little reader that from Victron Energy, and it's an energy monitor, so it actually calculates incoming current and outgoing current and lets me know my state of charge fairly accurately. I don't think it's perfect, but it's a lot better than guessing via voltage. So we've got 26.22 volts in the batteries at the moment, and we drew 205 amp hours overnight. That equates to about 5 kilowatt hours, I think, give or take. So that's that one there. There's not much more to it. You can't do much. You just set up the COM port and that's it. Now with the PIP 2424 MSX, now this is the control panel for that, so to speak. Now there's lots of different ones. There's lots of different companies out there that provide different sorts of control panels, but I've got a USB version of the inverter, which is one of the newer ones, and it's not supported on lots of the other software, so I have to use the genuine software. Which is a little bit disappointing because it doesn't do everything I need, but it does 99%. So it's, you know, it works well, and it's stable too, so you've got to like that. So basically, it's just got, up in the top right here, it's just got basic settings: load percentage, 11%, current power, 278, Hertz output voltage. The output voltage is always less, 228, 229 volts usually, rather than 240 volts. I dare say that's just to save power, or save battery voltage, I guess you'd say. And the grid frequency, PV voltage is 0 because I don't have any solar panels on that yet. However, that is planned in the future. Battery voltage is 26.06. That differs from here. It says 26.18 because this one's under load and this one's not. So that's that. Current settings I've got input. I've got buzzer alarm set to disable because it drives me crazy. Power saving mode is turned off. Now, I made this mistake when I first bought this one a year and a half ago, and I had power saving enabled, and that causes, in the middle of the night, say the fridge and freezer's off, and all that you've got is a whole heap of LEDs around the house. They don't draw enough power off the inverter to actually tell it to stay on, so it keeps turning the inverter on and off and on and off, and of course the inverter beeps and carries on. And I lost the plot when a week into having my old the one down there that I took out, the PIP 2424 HS. I lost the plot thinking that I'd broken it or something. So that power saving mode I have set to disable. Backlight disabled just because the blue light drives me crazy. Overload auto restart, yes. Basically because my kids always overload it, just because, you know, they do silly things and don't care. Over temperature restart, that's set to enable. I have never... Actually, no, I have once over temperature the old inverter. Never done it on the new one. The new one is awesome. Beeps while primary source interrupt. Yes, that's basically the primary source on this inverter is the batteries. So if the batteries get disconnected, even if it's in grid mode, it will beep and carry on and actually disconnect the power to the house. And overload bypass enabled. That just means once it gets past 2,400 watts, it'll automatically click back to grid. LCD display, that's just self-explanatory. Okay, so charge source priority. I've got solar only because I don't want it to charge at all. On the really sunny days, I flick it over to utility, and then I can actually click it to utility, set the max charging current to 30 amps. So if we have a look at the energy monitor here, we've got... Actually, no, I'm not going to change that setting now because it's going to stuff some other stuff up, so I'm not going to do that. But if I change it to utility, over here, I've got max AC charging current. I can do 20 or 30 amps. So I can also charge with solar via 60 amps via the PCM60X, or I can do it with this one via utility for an extra 30 amps if I need to top the batteries off. Output source priority, at the moment, it is SBU, which is solar battery utility. And that basically prioritizes the solar, then battery, then utility, as it sounds. So if it hasn't got solar, it uses battery. If it hasn't got battery, it goes back to utility. Throughout the day, I usually have it set to utility, just because it's like foggy morning. This morning I haven't clicked it back over, and it's 8:44 in the morning at the moment. So AC input range, I set it to UPS. My appliances tend to clunk a little bit. I believe UPS is a faster changeover. I don't know that for sure. But also UPS means if the power goes out, it just goes to battery and we don't lose any power. We actually don't even notice the power go out, except for the fact that the Foxtel goes out, because that's out on the street. The signal comes from the street because it's cable in the internet. Battery type is user. Now this bit's important. And this bit here is why I'm using the PCM60X for charging and not this solar charge controller, at least for now. With this one, I can set the bulk charge to 28.8, which is slightly below the other one. The PCM60X is 28.92. Now, I've deliberately set this one lower. For two reasons. One, I can't do the second decimal place on this one, where I can with the PCM60X. And I can't change the constant voltage timer, which I can with the other one. So I'm not using this here, but this 28.8 does come into effect when you use the charge source utility. That does come into effect. And I'm not sure about the curves and stuff like that. I have no doubt that this is not a perfect way of charging my batteries, but for now it works and it's what I can afford. So ask me in a year's time whether this is going to work. Back to grid voltage, I've got set to 24 volts. That is just when the batteries drop below 24 volts, it goes back to grid. Max charge current is 60 amps. Now that's controlled by the solar. Max AC charging current is 30 amps. And back to discharge voltage is 26 amps. Now if you have this back to discharge voltage, say at full, and then you go from utility to solar, it won't actually change over unless the batteries are full. So I've set it at 26 volts. Most days so far it's actually been above 26 volts, so it would actually turn the batteries back on. Several times that when I had the old AGM batteries, that was at 26 volts and the batteries just weren't at 26 volts and run all night without the batteries, even though I could have. Now, battery cutoff voltage, that is basically for when you have no grid connected to this inverter. Now, I made this mistake in one of my 4-hour tests. I think it was the last one. I had grid cutoff voltage set to 24 volts. So as soon as the inverter got to 24 volts, it just shut down. Now, if you look here, back to grid voltage is 24 volts. That is only for when you have the grid connected. Battery cutoff is like a protection on the actual batteries themselves, so when the grid goes down, it won't discharge past 22 volts. I don't want it that low, but I haven't changed it since the other day, and I never run off grid for that long anyway. So that is the PIP 2424 MSX inverter, pretty much explained. It has got error log files and stuff like that up here, which does take a little bit of time to open. There we go. You can have a look at your voltage outputs and how much amps and watts and capacity and all that sort of stuff in there. And then you've also got one beside it with all your error logs, so you can display any errors you've had for over voltage or over temperature or whatever. And there's no errors. That's a good thing. So that is that one. What else have we got? We've also got Sunny Explorer, which hooks up to my SMA TL5000 inverter. We're currently producing 700 watts, and this is a graph from the last month. So we've had a few good days, but the last week to 10 days, it's been pretty horrible with a maximum of 15 kilowatt hours there. Yesterday we had 11 kilowatt hours, which subsequently means my batteries haven't been charged fully since I put them into service, because I just haven't had the solar to charge them. But we've got a couple of good days coming up, and I reckon she's going to get to full charge. Now, the only other software I need to show you is the one that controls the PCM60X. Now, this watch power and MPP tracker are from the same company. However, you have to close one down in order to open the other one. That's where MPP Solar Patrol comes in and a few others. However, I can't run them because it's connected via USB. So if I open MPP Tracker, it will allow me to show you the settings on the PCM60X. And the problem with this computer being 32-bit and only having 3 gig of memory means it's slow. The MINISTRATOR. Now that default password, for anybody that wants to know, is administrator. So if you don't know that password, it's administrator. You can change it, but it's pretty much useless because it doesn't do much. Okay, so this one is pretty much the same as the other, watch power, except it's just charge controller only. So we've got PV input voltage is 87 volts, 100 volts. Battery voltage 26.34, charge current, we're getting 8 amps from the solar panels at the moment, and external battery temperature is 30 degrees, but that isn't actually connected, and the external battery voltage isn't connected. I'm not going to have the batteries, the temperature set up, because I don't think it's going to have any effect on these type of batteries. That's my personal opinion. That's not, any research. External battery voltage I haven't got hooked up. That means this inverter actually shuts down when it runs out of power. So once the solar goes out, it doesn't draw any power from the battery bank. So that saves 0.1% of my battery, but it does save something. Temperature there is the internal temperature of the inverter. of the charge controller. I've seen that up at 70 degrees on a summer's day. Now, next equalization has been turned off, even though it says day 10. Okay, that is not working. So we got charge current 60 amps, 24 volts is the batteries. Absorb voltage is 14.46, which is something like 28.8 or 28.9 something volts. I don't know why it displays in 12 volts rather than 24. And the same with float voltage. I've got it set to the same as the absorption. So we click up here, it gives us all the settings. Again, battery type is customized. Float and absorb 14.46 volts, times that by 2, you get what they actually charge it to. I got the max charging because I want the max charging out of my panels. I've got battery equalization settings is disabled because I don't want the batteries to equalize. I don't need them to equalize. And constant charge time I've set to 30 minutes. It seems to work a little bit better than having it at 300 minutes, which I thought was better in the beginning. Clearly I was wrong. I had a few people said that should be as low as humanly possible. So I'm just trying it at 30 minutes. That just means the content, once the batteries are charged, it constantly charges it for another 30 minutes at a lower amp but a higher volt or something. I don't pretend to understand it all, but that's how I've got it set up. And again, these two buttons here just gives me a few error logs and stuff like that. So temperature and charge and all that sort of thing. So it allows you to track it all over throughout the day. So YouTube, that is the computer, the power shed, so to speak. Below I'll list all components and where you can get all this software from and buy the components. Some may be from eBay, some may be from other places. Links might expire. If the links do expire and you're watching this in a year's time or something, shoot me a quick message and I'll try and update it for you. Cheers YouTube, and I'll catch you on the next one.